Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. Brad and Ray are joined this week by multi-time guest now and fellow content creator, hockey insider. Well, I shouldn't say fellow hockey insider. Ray and I are on the outside, but all around hockey guy. So Zach's going to be here today as well. Ray, we have snow. It snowed twice in Boston this week. We have probably a good half inch.
Oh, wow. And see, you've got the snow that we lost. It warmed up significantly. Chinook blows in and the temperatures rise and things get terribly sloppy and messy and car washes celebrate. And yeah, it's a mess here, but it's warmer and I'll accept that. I have no trouble with it. You know what I mean? So, but it's dark. I mean, the mornings don't start where is the sun? You know what I mean? It's 8. We have in the winter, right? Or sorry, in the summer, it's sunshine at 4:30, and you have all the blinds down, and you're trying to get some sleep without the.
Oh my goodness!
Dang you, sunshine with your vitamin D providing, abilities. We don't, leave me alone for a little bit, and now it's like we get 2 hours of sunshine. I mean, it's not Alaska, but it's dark. It's like really, really dark right now.
I don't know why I didn't realize how much. I got to look at a map and see how much further north you are than I am. Because I always, as an American, right, I always think, Boston's way up there at the top, but it's not.
Yeah.
Because you can still drive another 12 hours north just in Maine, and that just gets you to the border, right, with Canada. And then you just keep going north, or we look at our friends over in Scandinavia. If you travel, east from Boston, you are hitting France, not England, and not Scandinavia. So
yeah, no, exactly.
I forget how far south I really am sometimes.
You end up feeling like a night owl, and you got your 8 hours sleep. It's still crazy, right? You feel like you're missing out. We would be missing out if we didn't have Zach with us, and Zach Martin. Zach carved out time for us. I don't know where you found the time to do it. You're involved in everything. Lay it out for us. There's nothing that you aren't doing.
Yeah, Moreover, from last time, I think you've gone from a podcast to podcasts 15? And writing and
reporting and just everything. It's amazing. So we're glad that you spend some time with us. It's fantastic. Thank you, Zach.
Well, thank you guys for the invite. Yeah, no, it's fun because it's actually my first time being solo with you guys. Usually I'm with a co-host, so it's get to actually just talk to you guys by myself, which is always fun. But I appreciate it. Yeah, it's I was talking to Bailey when she was out here from Colorado because she covers the Avalanche now, and going from the Stadium Series, it's just we were doing just the Surgecast at the time to now we're talking February to February, so a year, and then now we're in a year and 10 months or something like that. We're going on to covering the Hurricanes for the Hockey Writers, being credentialed and Locked On Hurricanes now, which is still a crazy thing that even happened. That came out of nowhere. They're like, hey, we're looking for a host, and it's like, sure, why not? And I'm not going to complain about that. Then now it's now coming up on close to 200 articles now for the Hockey Writers and stuff like that, and covering the Hurricanes for a playoff game. Of course, it was Game 3 against the Rangers in the that second round in the last playoff. But it's been crazy. And you got to talk to a lot of great people, especially with the Hurricanes, and had some great interviews with people from the Chicago Wolves too, which hopefully gets some more, Wolves Wednesdays going, because my work schedule's been a little bit crazy and I haven't getting any of those done. But yeah, it's been a wild ride since the Stadium Series, going from just I'm a hockey podcaster, recording once a week, no big deal, to asking, talking to Jordan Martinook, Andrei Svechnikov, Rod Brindamore, and even talking to Jared Bednar from the Colorado Avalanche, which is a great guy, by the way. Really a great human being. And then Devontae's, and because I was able to attend Avs practice just to get scouting the refs and stuff like that. So or scouting the Avalanche and stuff like that. But yeah, it's been a crazy ride. That's for sure. I'm still pinching myself sometimes. I'm how is this possible?
That's how I feel having Shane on. I'm like, did that really happen, Ray? Like, that was really cool.
That was having Shane on was a dream come true for me. Like I said, when you get a chance to see someone that you actually watch play in junior up here.
Yeah, great episode, by the way. That was a great episode by you guys. And yeah, it was crazy for us too. The fact we got him on Surgecast and Locked On, and just be able to talk to Shane and pick his brain is absolutely insane. And of course, Mike Maniscalco too. Like, how can you not enjoy having him on and just talking to him as well?
I was a little surprised how forthright Shane was with some of, like, he was willing to play like with like the weather report with us and hey,
it's like he's not afraid to let people know how he feels. And it's like,
I like the fact that he feels comfortable and his company lets him feel comfortable to speak his mind, right? Because he's being honest. He's not being mean. He's just like, hey, these are the things that I see, because probably you're seeing them too. Real quick, because I mean, I know for Ray and I, it's been we've had some really cool opportunities because of the podcast, especially getting to meet people, like talking for people around the world, getting to talk to Shane. We're getting to go to Toronto to see the Canes in February because one of our listeners is like, hey, I have tickets. Do you want, to go with me? And we're like, yes. And I'm like, I don't think I can go. And I talked to my wife. She's like, yes, you're absolutely going, right?
Yeah. That is absolutely awesome. Toronto's on my bucket list. Not maybe just to go to a Maple Leafs game, but just to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame, because I mean that's like right. That's our mecca as hockey fans. Like, you have to go to the Hall of Fame at least once. So yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list, and I don't blame you if you're like, yeah, we're definitely carving out.
I'm trying to fly in at like 7 a.m. morning of to do that and then go to the game. And like, that's no offense, Toronto. That's all. Like, if I see those two things,
that's all you need to do. Just Hockey Hall of Fame, Canes, Leafs, you're good to go. Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I hope you're able to go. Yeah,
thank you. One of the things I've noticed, and maybe you've noticed too, and I can't remember. I don't know if it was. I don't think Shane alluded to this, but I heard somebody talking about it the other day, and it really ring a bell. Mm-hmm. Traditional media, right? It used to be, because you're a credentialed media member now, right? With hockey writers, it used to be if you weren't the local sports guy, and generally was a guy, or ESPN or SI, like, you weren't getting credentialed, and you weren't getting the games, and you certainly were not getting the locker room or coach pressers or any of those things, and I think hockey is one of the sports where podcasting has really taken off, and things like podcasting and blogging have really given opportunities to people, and the teams, because I think it's not as popular of a sport as like, the big two, especially football, basketball, have latched on to that, right? And you see like them willing to come on and like, yeah, like you may be a podcaster, like, Ray and I don't get paid to do this, but you add value. Like, we understand that we can't ignore you. And that's a huge change, I think, over the last, particularly maybe since COVID, because I think a lot of these things popped up. Our podcast popped up because of COVID. And have you noticed some of those things, same things? Man, I cannot speak, which is not unusual for me, but it seems like hockey in specifically has really, gone out and been like, hey, if you are a legitimate blogger, like, you can show a body of work, right? You're not just trying to get in the door. Like, we're willing to consider you, having you come in and treating you like we would if you were from, the AP. And that's a huge, opportunity for people who want to get, some skin in the game legitimately, right?
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting when you look at it to where, because I even know before I even did the Hikers, like, I was with this network called Billy Up Sports, and I tried to get with the Hurricanes in there, and they're like, we know of you and stuff like that, but it's not a website or a company that we know league wide. So it's like we can at least put you on the emails for if you want to get updates and stuff like that. But we can't credential you right now. Mm-hmm. So jumping on the hockey writers, luckily they're well known enough to where it's like they've been around since 2009, and to where they're. And the thing is, like, they just got credentialed with the Minnesota Wild this past season. They've been trying for over a decade to get in there, and yeah, when you look at and it's nothing against the Wild, it's just it's Minnesota State Hockey. What can you
and people forget there's only so much room, right? There's
right,
only,
exactly.
I mean, press boxes, and I, having been credentialed as a photographer for a number of games, there's only so many photo holes in the arena.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
and it
Yeah.
gets tight, and there's competition, right? Because this is people's livelihood, and if you're not a full-time writer, photographer, whatever, there's a pecking order, right?
Yeah, it really is. And you see a huge difference even like with the Avalanche game. There was like a lot of space from where me and Bailey were sitting at. But then if you go to the playoffs last year against the Rangers, that whole section I was in, slap full. Like I think I was even sitting next to Giant Lazarus. And I didn't even realize it from Daily Face Off, which is just how it worked out. But it's like, but going back to your question of just seeing the bloggers and podcasters, I think for the fact that like they notice you because if you're being very active and like they like people, you'll be very surprised of who knows what you're doing and like they keep up with your stuff. And that's the thing that's very surprising because I mean we all know the funny Jordan Martinick situation of my goof up putting a projected lineup out and then you get DM'd from him and you're like, okay, and then that worked out. But like you'd be very surprised, and I think that's why with the Hurricanes, it's like I got to the hockey writers. I have maybe I'm like 3 or 4 articles in, and I'm like, hey, I want to be credentialed with the Canes, and it was just automatic. It's like, oh yeah, we know of Zach, he's good to go, and that's why it kind of worked out like that. Now to where it's like talking to Mike Senheim, and at the time, there's other guys as well. It if you keep putting yourself out there and being a voice of like covering the team, especially in the not like I'm going to do this air quotes non-traditional hockey markets because we all know we continuously hear about the Hurricanes, which is I've said my piece on that. It's just the disrespect and it's getting old at this point for being around since 1997, but it is what it is. You see teams like that kind of latch on to people who are like, yeah, okay, this guy's putting out content consistently. It's not the consistently negative, but it's also like you're finding that balance between being that optimistic, hey, I'm putting stuff out here to put a shining light on the Hurricanes in a good way rather than but then also not being a homer about it. Like you want to be that nice middle of figuring out how to like cover them while being critical, but also highlighting the positives as well. And that's what you're trying to do. And I think with hockey, it's like they notice that a lot more with the bloggers and stuff like that because you're getting more eyeballs on your team. Yeah, maybe it's not like as high as, let's say, the Athletic or like you said, the AP or NHL.com since like their specific correspondents are in that city and stuff like that or the hockey news. But if you're putting yourself into a spot where it's, like you said, consistently putting out articles and doing the job necessary and doing 2 podcasts a lot, and then you're getting people on there. They're like, okay, this guy's has this guest and this guest and this guest. It's you're kind of putting yourself into the spot of okay, this guy's legit. They're getting people on, and even if you're not getting people on, but you are a podcast that people recognize and follow. Like if you get good following on a podcast. If you're doing your job and I wouldn't say a job, but if you're doing it right to where you're being compelling, you're not just spouting hot takes all the time and just stuff like that, I think you find a way to carve yourself into a niche hockey situation to where you're like everyone and their mother can do a podcast on football and basketball and stuff like that. And you can say for hockey too, but I think hockey puts it in a good perspective of like you'll get noticed really quickly in a smaller world of what hockey is compared to another sport. And now sorry for the long-winded answer, but it's just interesting when you look at how hockey in itself finds a way to find you and give you the opportunities that you just one thing would happen. It's if you compare it to other sports, just because of the smaller impact compared, like you said, to football and basketball, but I feel like it's almost more impactful because just of how great the community can be within the hockey world.
No question. No question. And with the best part now is that, with these, podcasts and the grassroots type, I'll call it grassroots because, ESPN and all of the major networks, they're covering their hockey, but they have priorities, right? They have football and they have basketball and stuff like that. And hockey ends up, near the bottom of the half hour, right? If they can get to it. Whereas the focus for the grassroots and the podcasters is purely hockey. and it gets the information out. And when you find the right people who are part of that, it's great. And so that's why we are here. I think, we look for honest team assessments, right? Like we're not afraid to, we're not always carrying water or pumping tires. Sometimes we're telling it the way it is. And so let's get into that right now, because holy cow.
Speaking of needing some honesty.
Yeah, there's going to be some flat tires. Let's just say that. And if you're going to be thirsty, I think, at least in my opinion.
So what you're saying, there's we're not gonna roll any d20s for some persuasions or get some inspirations and stuff like that.
Well, I don't know how you even have a chance to play D&D. Never mind, you don't have time to roll the dice. You're so involved, you don't even have time. And I was going to ask that question later, but we'll leave that for now.
Yeah.
Why can't this team A, show up on time, B, play a full 60 when they're at it? And I know this is going to be nitpicky. We are 17-9-1, and frankly in a much better place than anyone expected, experts, regulars alike. And we're doing great. But there is a frustration from just looking at the 3 games in the past week. Never mind the whole, never mind the debacle that was the Thanksgiving weekend, with Florida back to back. Just look at the 3 games that we had, all winnable. Okay. Now, Colorado, to me, a much better situation than the Kraken and our opponents last night. But the Colorado Avalanche have like some of the worst goaltending I've ever seen anywhere. Like anywhere. Georgiev in the night when they got pasted like 8-2 or something like that, busting that stick, having a goals against average over 20 in the first 10 minutes of the game. Gave up 4 in the first 10.
Four goals on 8 shots.
I mean, that's just, how do you? And so
to be fair, we've had some nights that were not far off.
No, true enough, right? So we were
to be fair.
to be fair. So we're looking at the Avalanche, who were kind of ripe for the picking, if you ask me. Right? They're in a bad spot, and they happen to be swinging through, so it should have been easy. This was 6 points. That was ours, and we ended up with 2. Why? Someone, anyone.
I'll go. I'll let Zach think. That's a great, it's the question. And Rod Brindamore has now come out and said, and all credit to Rod Brindamore, we've said before, like, he seems to be loosening the reins of his system a little bit to give a little more creativity. It's why Blake is tied for 8th in rookie scoring. It's why Nate just leads the league in points. It's why, we can see the spinorama move and he doesn't lose the puck and things sometimes happen, right? So all credit to Rod. That being said, he came out in the last day or so and said, yeah, shuffling the lines isn't working. We agree. So can we put together some lines that guys can have some synergy? We love that the team has replaceable parts. But what I worry about is, it's like talking, if you're the kind of parent who gives your kids a count of 3, all the other parents know that your kid isn't going to respond until you get to 3, right? 1 and 2 become meaningless because 3 is the only thing that matters. And if you're switching lines every, 10 minutes of a period, then and I know Rod's like, oh, like moving KK down is not a demotion. Well, he's on the line with the least amount of time, and his points and everything that he's been doing went down with that. You know what I mean? Like when he was on the second line, he was generating points and he was contributing and he was doing all the things he needed to do. And now he's still doing the non-offensive things, but he's not getting the opportunities for the offensive things. So we need to realize that juggling the lines isn't the only way to motivate, because there's professionals. If they can't get motivated to play a full 60, that's a problem in and of itself. And I don't think it's like a locker room issue like last year. I think some of these guys just need a good kick in the pants. I mean, we talked before we started recording, against the Islanders, you give up 2 goals in under 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Or just over 2 minutes, less than 3 minutes for sure. Against the Kraken, you give up a goal in the first 19 seconds, right? Against Dallas, you give up a goal in the first 18 seconds. Against Florida, you give up 2 sets of 2 goals within 2 minutes in one game, and 2 sets of 2 goals within 3 minutes in the other game.
And, well, for Colorado, you let them score like 24 seconds after you get a power play goal to go up 2 goals, right. And then you're back to a 1-goal game once again off a broken defense.
Right. Yeah. It's mental. It's their condition. They come back in the third and they play hard. Mentally, I don't know what the block is. Like, if you need a Dr. Sharon to come in and a sports psychologist to like walk them through some stuff, do it, because it's in their heads. I asked these two, and I'm going to ask the listeners, maybe pause for a second when I ask and see if you can think, when's the last time the Hurricanes won a game scoring less than 4 goals? And you can pause here for a second, think about it, and then hit play. And I'll tell you, October 22nd in a 3-2 overtime win against the Edmonton Oilers.
Which was a comeback. Which was a comeback.
Yeah.
We were down 2-0. That was a comeback.
And it's not that we're giving up 3 goals. You know what I mean? Like, they don't need 4 goals to win, but why do you somehow need 4 goals to get the dub? Right? You can beat, you beat a couple of teams. You beat Ottawa 4-0. You beat Vegas 5-2. You beat the Blues 4-1. But why do you need 4 goals to win all these games? I know goaltending hasn't been great, but it's been lackluster, but it hasn't been horrid.
It's almost like that Schoolhouse Rock song where it's like this is the magic number. 4 is the magic number. That's basically what I feel like we're in Schoolhouse Rock almost, where it's like, how is this happening? Yeah, like we talked about, it's like we're a lot farther than we thought we were going to be. Like, some people thought we weren't going to make the playoffs. I thought we were going to at least finish second in the Metro, but it's going to be probably however that's going to work out, or even third at the worst. And we're still in a good spot, but we're in but it's not as bad as it was last year of player only meeting in Vancouver after dropping 4 straight on the Canadian road trip. Because you already did your Canadian road trip and you went 5-1, and you're like, okay, great, this is fantastic. We're playing a lot better than some people thought. And even outside this recent skid of the 3 straight losses going into Colorado and the Islanders game, I mean, if you look at the 9 losses we have now, I would say 4 of those have come within since Thanksgiving. So 4 of your 9 have come within the last week or so, and you're kind of like, well, okay, that's. If you ask anyone before that, hey, you have 9 losses, but it took you until Thanksgiving to get 4 of them after that, going into December, you're kind of like, okay. And I've said this on Locked On. I'd rather be on a losing streak and being in a bad spot now rather than wait till, like, what we've seen with guys getting hurt by the trade deadline or, like, going into the playoffs and you're limping your way in. Mm-hmm. Struggle now, but, yeah, it's still concerning when, like you said, Brad, you have to score 4 goals a game to do it. And some of these games recently, you've had to come back and do it in dramatic fashion. I mean, yeah, you're used to that. You're used to the comeback hands or the cardiac hands, but at the same time, you can't just keep doing that all the time, because after a while you start losing gas, and then you're running into teams who are going to take advantage of that. Because look what happened to the Panthers games. Yeah, you were doing pretty decently in the first period, in the second game, and then you give up 2 goals in the second, which isn't bad. You can come back, and then the wheels fall off where you get 2 shots in an entire period, and you get outscored 4. You give up 4 goals. But we've talked about it. I think ever since Utah, it's been a very Jekyll and Hyde situation with this team, to where it's like something happened in that game where you saw a complete disconnect of, yes, they're winning games, when it's like they show up for the full 60, or if they start slow and they come back, you're kind of like, okay, you got to come back and win that. Or there's games where you're just like, what was that? And especially the Kraken game, where for the second game in a row, you had 2 shots in a period. You had 7 shots in the first 40 minutes, and then you get 12 of your 19 in the last period. By then, though, you're kind of like, okay, well, it doesn't really matter at that point. And that's probably the worst game I've ever seen under the Rod Brindamore era since probably his first season. And I know Brad Julis and I absolutely, outside of the Drury goaltend that goal interference goal, I've never ranted that bad before, but that deserved a rant type situation from that game. Yeah, we've seen a lot. This has been a very Jekyll and Hyde hockey team since Seattle, and it's like they'll be on it and then they won't be on it, or you find that weird middle of like it's Dr. Hyde, Mr. Jekyll. Almost it's like you kind of almost see them do it, but then they kind of reverse they're like mid transformation, they switch back, and you're like, okay, you figured it out. I don't know what this weird stretch. This weird stretch has been absolutely insane, and even like I know everyone talk about the goaltending situation. It's still weird. Like we're still in this weird thing that's going on, but I mean, we could be a lot worse, but but then you look at the the Canadian road trip. You're like, hey, where's that? Where is that team that absolutely just blitzkrieged the entire part of that schedule? And now you're kind of like, what team are we going to get tonight? And like I said, we're still. I'm still gonna be optimistic. I'm still gonna beat the drum of we are still okay. We're still fine. We're still it's 17-9-1. We're still playing better hockey than a lot of other people in our own division and the league in general. Like we're still a top 10 team. It's just we're hitting this weird patch of hockey, which every team goes through. I mean, look at the Jets. The Jets lost 4 straight, and they started 9-0-0. Yeah, it happened. This isn't your grandfather's NHL. This isn't what we are used to from like the '90s clutch and grab, where it's like, oh, you're going into Anaheim, or you're going into Ottawa, or you're going into name this other team, automatic 2 points because this team stinks. And oh yeah, there was no salary cap, so you could have like the Avalanche, the Red Wings, and all these super teams. Now it's like anyone could beat anyone. Because I mean, we've seen the Sharks beat people. The Penguins just beat the Maple Leafs. Now we don't want to talk about that Sharks game where they got obliterated 8-2 or 8-1. That's a whole different thing. But you get my point. That we're in a different era of hockey where it's like, hey man, if you're not on it, another team's got some really good players. They can make you pay for it. We're just in a weird stretch right now, which is kind of like rather go through it now than right before the playoffs or in the playoffs.
True enough. And just for me, and maybe just one last comment on this part is that it seems to me, and I'm making light of it, making a joke of it, but it seems like at times the Hurricanes are trying to find out really just how many minutes it takes to win. Like if you're not going to play a full 60 minutes, how many minutes does it really take for us to win? We can win games like when they scored 5 in that comeback on Dallas in 10 minutes. It was the most complete team play that I had seen all season. They played perfectly in that time period. They gave up 1 goal, but they scored 5 and they dominated and they played the game as exactly to style as what's been needed. So, and me, I'm a lunch pail guy. I just love the guys that work hard and give me what you have, everything for a full 60. Don't test the waters and see, I'm not feeling it today. Maybe I'll only play 40 or 20. I mean, and you look at last night and I'll say it, Drury, Robinson, Roslovic, and there's a couple of others disappeared, just completely disappeared. And that we're not used to seeing that from those guys either. All season long, they have been like really hard workers and stuff. But when they take a night off, you can lose to anyone, including the Islanders, who are terrible.
or not. Honestly, the Islanders are ahead of the Blue Jackets in the standings. I think the Blue Jackets are a better team.
They are.
Well, going into
honestly
the game
believe
last
that.
night, going into the game last night, the Islanders were actually last in the division.
Oh, were they? Okay, so that
they
makes,
were last going into the game last night, and now they're. But yeah, the Jackets are a lot better team. It's just they're hitting some weird spots as well because I mean, they've been through a lot. So, but
yeah, and their goal. I mean, I look at goal differential a lot when I re-rank teams in my head, and I think you're going to see Columbus. I think they're going to outpace the Islanders and probably the Penguins.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. I don't think they're going to be in last. They're not the Blackhawks, we'll put it that way. I wonder if, and this kind of goes with like the KK demotion, which Rod says is not a demotion, just to be clear.
When you've now seen the second line in what, 5 games now?
Right, for one bad game, which was bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, but is he the only person who's had a bad game in the last 2 weeks? No, not. Yeah. Are guys making mistakes and worry that, and it's a little less for defensemen because Rod seems really set on not changing those pairings up at all. But at least for the forwards, is it a matter of like, oh, I made a mistake, and then they're worried, like, am I going to get swapped off on my line with the teammates that I'm enjoying playing with and stuff? Is the Rob Blendemore experience causing more harm than good mentally? And I'm not saying guys are going to come out and be like purposely, but is that in the back of their head? Like, oh man, I don't want to be KK and be, I don't, if I'm Drury, right, and I screw up, like, oh, am I going to get swapped for KK and go back to seeing fourth line minutes and fourth line time because, I made 1 or 2 goofs in a game and now it's, because they seem to have these mental lapses because the start of the third last night, the first 5 minutes or whatever, they were flying. The forecheck was going, everything was working. Like, where did that team go? And the early runs gave us a sense of kind of a false sense of how good they are because I still think they're good. They have some gaps that I'd love to see filled, but we were above a 750, I think, points percentage as were some other teams. And that's, for the most part, that's not really sustainable, right? No, Wild are the best team in the league and they're at 741. And, if you're hitting 700, you're great right now. And the Hurricanes are at 648 right now.
Which is still, even then, it's still pretty good, too, because you're still talking, if you're in the mid 60s or even up in the upper 60s, you're still pretty good overall. Yeah. You'll take that, but
make the playoffs healthy and then see what happens, right? That's unless you really feel you need a President's Trophy. I don't care.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I think the President's Trophy is just kind of they're saying it's not cursed, but it's also kind of cursed because they don't really win it a whole lot. But with the Hurricanes, I will say Jack Drury almost had a highlight reel goal if he was able to finish it because he did. I forget who it was. He did snap someone's ankles on a really great stop and go.
Oh my gosh, beautiful.
That was disgusting. I think with Jack, because the way he's been playing, because he has been scoring a lot outside of that disallowed goal, and plus he leads the team in faceoffs. So I can see why Rod is like, okay, I want you on the second line because you are winning a lot of faceoffs, even though KK was too. And I had people ask me, this offense needs a reset. Where do you think a reset needs to happen? And my first response was Robinson, Kotkaniemi, Necas. Put those 3 back together because you saw before this weird era of post Utah, that line was absolutely just smoking. Like put that in a locomotive and send that down the track, and that thing that'll send you to the moon. That's how great that line was. And I think that line being broken up, you see the weird disconnect to where the second line's still producing, but you're not seeing them produce where you saw them for most of the start of the season, to where you have KK playing really great defensive hockey, winning faceoffs, getting those board battles, finding the great passes to set up Robinson and Necas, who, for me, work perfectly together because their speed matches each other. Because Necas always needed someone to match his speed. And Seth Jarvis even said before the season started when he signed his contract, even when he was at the arena for his interview, Robinson's speed is so underrated and so sneaky good. And it's like, watch out for it. And you saw that. That's how him and Necas have been so good together. And like you said, Brad, with Martin Necas and Spinorama, he had some spinoramas last night that were absolutely amazing. Like puck on stick, finding guys when need to. Like he's found a way to do the spinoramas and drop passes, but he's done it perfectly now to where it's like he's holding on to it a little bit longer or finding the right guy in the right spot. Like he's completely switched. Like he might have a giveaway here and there, but it's not as much as it was last year.
It's not.
It's almost dang near perfect to where it's like I would say 95% of the time it's done great. I've said he can basically stick handle at a London phone booth with someone in there. That's how good he is right now. And you saw Nietzsche's last night all over the ice. Like his play
He had a
this
couple
year.
puck retrievals that were phenomenal, individual efforts.
Colorado, great board battles, even against Colorado. Like his defense has gotten so much better. I don't know what it is like this offseason with him and Rod, whatever conversation they had, it somehow has he leads the like he's like the first Czech player to lead the league in points since Jacob Voracek back in like 2015. He's the first Hurricane since Brenda Moore in 2006 post Cup win, and he was tied with Marian Hossa at the time for points, and now he outright leads Kaprizov and McKinnon and all these other guys, and he's playing great hockey. But yeah, like seeing guys disappear last night, and I know I listened to your guys' episode after mine about fishing. I love fish. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to get yelled at. But I feel like last night though, like I didn't even know he had an assist in that game last night. And we know he has had slow starts. His pace is great. But it feels like sometimes though you see him and then sometimes you don't see him. And even outside of Svech, in the last two games, there's been games where you don't even recognize Svechnikov either sometimes. I feel like we're not getting, and Rod said it too, like the big boys need to be the big boys, and they're not doing that sometimes, and that's why it's like with Aho, it's hit and miss. Svechnikov, it's hit and miss. You'll see Jarvis. Him and Nietzsche have been the two most consistent. Those guys are there.
Mm-hmm.
Every game. I've never seen Jarvis take a night off. Like that kid is absolutely everywhere and more. That's why more than deserves being on Team Canada. Outside of all the 25 guys from the World Junior team who didn't make it, that just shows you how good he's one of the top 23 Canadians in the league because that's just how good that kid is. Of course, good old Winnipeg boy who does it, but it's and Rod said it too. It's the fact that what more can you say about Martin Nietzsche's? Like he offensively, he's putting it on his shoulders. He does it every night, but it's almost like you can't rely on 88 to do it every night for you. You can't expect him to have multi-point games every single game. Yeah, he had an assist last night, and that's great. And even against Colorado, he had a multi-point night, but it's like you can't rely on him to bail you out every game. And I feel like, and that's why you see such a huge gap between Martin Nietzsche and I think it's Aho or Svechnikov or second. I think it's Svechnikov who's second in points on the team. But I saw some people be like, "Oh, did he cater to Nietzsche's too much to where he's sacrificing Aho and Svechnikov?" No, that's not Rod Brennmore's game. No. He loosened the reins a little bit on Nietzsche to let him play his game, but he's also letting the other guys do their jobs as well. It's just unfortunate, whatever reason is, losing Tavo is maybe possibly slowed Aho down a little bit because now he's trying to be more of a facilitator and stuff like that. Or he's still shooting, but it's not it's a weird spot to be in for Aho, but even Svechnikov too. Like even Svech is like he's still shooting, but it's not
connecting.
Yeah, and somehow those two, for whatever reason, I don't know if you guys have seen it. Sometimes this has never worked. Those two together sometimes just never work, and that's why you always see them on different lines most of the time. And now you're kind of having to play them together because you can't put Svech on the second line because Robinson, KK, Nietzsche was doing so great at one point. And even with Robinson, Drury, Nietzsche, you still can't put Svech down there. You can't put him on the third line with the Jordans because you got Seth down there because that line works together. You can't put him on the fourth line because that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So it's almost like Andre's in a weird spot of what do you do with a line that's got Aho who's trying to figure out how to be a playmaker, and then you have Roslovic who's on a Cy Young candidacy with 13 goals and 3 assists. And it's like, is there not enough puck for Andre and Aho to do their thing as well? So
Yeah. And Aho to
it's a
me,
weird spot.
though, this is why he's not a superstar, is because he's not a Seth Jarvis where you look at any game film and you're like, oh, there he is, right? I mean,
Yeah,
he's still over a point per game. He's still at 1.08 points per game. Like,
I know it's crazy.
it's sneaky, and and you're right. You don't see him, you don't realize the things he's contributing. But part of what we've always said is, well, he's a 200-foot player.
Mm-hmm.
My
so
biggest
Seth Jarvis.
worry,
Seth Jarvis is a 200-foot player too, and I guess I know. Ray's like, hey, Ron Francis 2.0, yeah,
yeah,
but with Ron Francis, because Ron Francis being Ron Francis, you'll see him every single night, and nothing. And like I said, nothing against Aho. I love the guy, but it's kind of like this season in particular, kind of like I kind of want to see you. I want to see you do these things.
my worry with Aho, and this goes with your point with Aho and Svechnikov, is they're a combined minus 11. And for two guys, and particularly Aho, who is should be our dominant, he's our all situations guy, right? He's our 200-foot guy. He is Ron Francis 2.0. You shouldn't be a minus 6. And I know that that's not a standalone stat, but I'm not really trying to use it that way. I'm just saying, for even as good as he's been, over a point per game, I don't know what it is that some of that defensive, prowess, and it's not necessarily him, right? It can be on his line mates, right? It's 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 stat. But the two of them together being negative, and it's not huge, but for two guys who are right around the point per game, margin, like you should be closer to 0 on a bad day, right? For being the players you are,
Mm-hmm.
you should be positive. Like, you really should be. I mean, so
I think that was my initial point with Aho back on that episode with Chris, who covers the PWHL and all that. And I know, like I said, listening to you guys, you guys brought up some great points and stuff like that. And that was my whole point with Aho, is the fact that it's like, yeah, you want him to do a lot more than just, like, he's not there just to score. He's there to do a lot of other things. But it's kind of like, yeah, you're not supposed to be negative. You're supposed to be closer to the positives. And for me, like, I look at plus minus with your time on ice stat, and especially with defense, because it's more of a context stat of, okay, what's your time on ice look like? What are you doing? What's your situation? So for defense, it's just time on ice. For forwards, is what's your time on ice? What's your shifts, shooting percentage? Like, you have to almost combine almost all the stats together to kind of get what you're looking. And I know that's why the NHL tried to do this NHL edge, where it's like, okay, what's this guy doing off the main goals,
Off
points?
puck.
Off puck. What's your off puck stats look like? And I think with Aho, you can kind of see where he's doing good in some and not some in others. And I wish NHL edge was a lot more streamlined. It still is. I see the NHL. I'll give the NHL credit. They're trying with these metric stats. It's a lot, but it's this weird thing, like I said, with Aho and Svetch, where it's like you shouldn't be doing this good and still being negative. Like, you're almost hitting like Maple Leafs territory of, you have all these guys who are doing so good, but you're in the negatives. You're not producing like we expect you to be. And I would love to see Sebastian Aho as a superstar, but it's almost kind of like, are we seeing maybe Seth Jarvis and Martin Necas kind of taken? I know Martin Necas is this is a weird, like, we saw him get 71 points 2 seasons ago. You're like, okay, this is his breakout. Then he kind of took a step back last year. Of course, that was a whole different other things that led to that. But now he's on a monumental, insane. This guy could break Eric Stahl's 100-point season. Like, we could see a franchise record for points. And we're talking just Hurricanes, but Whalers Hurricanes franchise record for points in a season type thing, which could be a one-off, or maybe this is we finally unlocked it. But could we see Jarvis and Necas maybe being those superstars that we thought that Aho was supposed to be? Because those two, every night, we've noticed them. Aho, I know a lot of people have said it. Where is he? And I'm not trying to be negative about it, but it's kind of like when Rod is saying, I need you to step up multiple games, and you got a lot of people, even the Aho lovers, are kind of like, where's Sebastian? and like I said, I'm not trying to be negative about it. I mean,
No, no,
I
no.
like the guy, but it's just kind of like, yeah, it's when it's starting to hit a trend of like, okay, where's Fetch? Where's Aho for a lot of these
Yeah.
games? And then it's like, wait, he had 2 points. Okay, great. Didn't see it, but you love to see it. Like doing it quietly is fine, but you also want to be doing it quietly while also being impactful to where it's like, oh, okay. Does that make sense to you guys? I know I'm trying to like
Yeah.
paint it to
I
where it's like,
mean,
okay, do you like we see it, but it's also we also don't see it at the same time, which is kind of like what am I missing here? If that
yeah,
makes sense.
like for me, really, um, and this is with all players, not just apologist for Aho or whatever. Like when I see him playing a bad game, that's when I really see him not playing well. Okay,
Right.
when he completely disappears, but he completely disappears so little
Right.
that and again, I think for everyone who's looking at him and saying, "Where are you?" You look on the stat sheet. He's still producing. Not only is he still producing, he's producing better than he was last season.
Hmm.
And so
Yeah.
we just
That's
need
that
to
weird thing. It's
we just need to wait. Now, um, I'm gonna throw I'm gonna throw a curveball at you both. Okay, because it's not on our those of you who've joined us on the show know that we have a little chat lineup. It's the total and complete preparation that we do, which is next to none. 30 seconds of, okay, we want to talk about this. Yeah, okay, let's go. Boom, and we're on. I've got something that's kind of a curveball, and it references more uh, Rod Brindamore slash Blendamore. What is the lineup? Give me your line combinations that will make this team a consistent winner. And I'll go first. I've got them all kind of marked out here. And then you to give you guys a chance to pull it all together and let me know what you think. As far as the lines go, what do you want Rod to set up and stay with? Okay. So for me, and I'm going to number the lines because it's just the way it is. Like this is just the way it is, Rod. That
Ray
was one of the
numbers lines,
things.
Rod.
Shane, yeah, and Shane said it. Rod is has a just a veritable cornucopia of talent on his team that he can intertwine and switch up at any time. And so sometimes maybe you have to take the toy away from the kid who's playing with it because if you set it and forget it, it might work better. My lines numbered. First off, line one is Svechnikov, Aho, Jarvis. Jarvis and Aho play so well together, and I like Svetch's power forward play enough to give the space for guys like Aho and Jarvis to work. And so I want that's my top line. My second line is KK at center with Natchez and Roslovic. Roslovic is ridiculously fast, just like Natchez, and he loves to shoot. So, yeah, there might not be, say, enough puck there at times, but tell me, do you want your opposition's goaltender or team focusing strictly on Natchez, or do you because you want to stop him from scoring, or do you want them to say, "Hey, we got to worry about this guy who's having a career season himself and scoring and has a great shot and is ultra quick as well." And Natchez has been getting a lot of assists. He's been finding those guys. Some of those passes, I they just blow your mind, wizard like. I think that line works well together.
Ray Whitney, is that you?
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly, Zach. My third line, it's the way it should have always been. Stahl, Martinook, Carrier. And just leave it at that. Just leave it at that because they are great and stifling. And Drury, Blake, and Robinson. Robinson is very similar to me to Martinook, to Carrier. He is a pit bull who is also ridiculously quick, and he loves to go to the net, right? You've got Blake, who's got great talent. Drury, yes, he's on the fourth line. Yes, he is the best face-off guy right now. But I think that line had great chemistry to start the season. And I would like to see those guys go back together. If I am picking my four lines, that's how I lay them out. And I'm not claiming to be more knowledgeable than Rod or anything, but I just like I like what I see when this line is put together. It has performed. This line has been in many games at the start of this season, and how great was it? I mean, we're 17-9, 17-9-1 right now.
Mm-hmm.
There is something there. Brad, put you on the spot.
All right.
What's your lineup?
So these will be, I don't think we've seen these combos yet. And that's part of why I would give this a try, right? If we're going to do so my first thought would be just go back to the lines you started the season with. The lines you took through Western Canada, just do that. That being said, for funsies, Svech and Aho, I think, will get it together. And I would move up Blake.
Ooh.
Give the kid a shot. Give some of that youthful energy to the two now veteran, not youthful anymore guys. Right? Because that kid's got energy to burn every shift. I like watching him skate. He's got speed, he's got hands. I think particularly he and Aho together could be something great. With Svechnikov making room, if Svechnikov can be the player he was, for example, the last couple of games, where he is using his big body, not necessarily to hit guys, but to make room on the ice, I that would be fun, I think, to watch. You go back to Robinson, KK, and H's. I mean, it works. And Drury has also worked, as Zach pointed out, but I have other thoughts for Drury, right? So I'm going to number my lines. I'm not going to number my lines because Rod doesn't want us to. So Svech, Aho, Blake is line A because that's not a number. B, subset A is Robinson, KK, Natchez. Your shutdown line, Martinook, Stahl, Carrier. I liked that line earlier in the year. It wasn't as good as maybe as with Jarvis on it in terms of offensive opportunities, but I'm fine having them just purely to shut down the other team's top line because, you know, for those of you who can do the mental name math, that leaves you with a line B, subsection B, not a fourth line, Jarvis, Drury, and Roslovic. You have a lot of go juice on that line. You have three guys who have some skill on that line. You have a puck retrieval guy in Jarvis. You have a guy who looks like he just wants to shoot the puck all the time in Roslovic. And you have Drury, who has made some phenomenal passes and some really great shots, even if they're called back for calls. I don't know. I feel like those three together, you could have, you know, instead of a traditional, more grindy style fourth line, you let your third line, right, your C line take care of the other team's big dogs. And now you're rolling out three fairly high power lines that have what you need. There's a puck retrieval guy on each one. There's a guy who's big enough to make some space on each one. And you have hands, you know, on each one, you know, guys. And each of those lines has at least one person who really sees the ice well, right? Drury's been doing that. Jarvis has come a long way in doing that. I mean, the kid's been phenomenal. I think looking at the advanced stats, one of the best couple of players in the league 5-on-5 defensively. Like he really has gotten to understand. But, like I said, the Western Canada lines would be choice A. And my lines here would be fun to try out as an option B, because the nice part is you can mix and match a lot of these guys. These are combinations you haven't seen yet. And then it's just down to time on ice, right? What's the other team doing and what are you doing and who are you going to roll? And if you get, if everybody's playing closer to 18 minutes or something, instead of having some guys at 22, 23 and some guys at 12, you could roll 3 solid offensive lines that way. So
see, and I was just going to say, like, Rod swears up and down he doesn't do number his lines, but at the end of every night, the fourth line always has the fewest minutes.
It's semantics, right?
Always. Like
you don't have to number them. You can use whatever system you want. But the fact is, one of your lines plays on average 5 or 6 minutes less a game than the other lines. The rest of us call that the fourth line, Rod. Right?
And so, Brad, that is a very unique lineup selection, and I'd say the way that would work best is if Rod actually made it equal minutes for everyone as much as possible, because I can't see Jarvis coming off the ice from, say, 17 minutes to 12. If Rod's not willing to play it even, then
the only one of those lines that should maybe get more time is Martin Stahl Carrier as needed, and you roll the other 3 lines pretty much even, because if you need 4 goals to win, that line I think can give you 4 goals a game.
It could. Yeah.
That lineup.
All right, Zach, we're putting it on you now.
No
pressure.
No pressure. Honestly, I'm almost kind of similar to Brad's in terms of this is where you kind of evenly roll your lines of the A, B, and D, if we want to call them that, or A, subsection A, and subsection B, or however you want to call it, to almost towards you as well, right? It's kind of like a combination of both in a sense, but I think for me, we've kind of seen this first line work this year. It's only for like maybe a game or two, but I think it could have some juice on it if you let it play long enough. So the first group, I would say, I'm just going to call I'm going to call them trios, like trio A, trio B, trio, just the trios. Sure. The first trio I would look at is Jarvis, Aho, Blake, because we've already seen that, and I think you give that, because you have like you said, you got your puck travel guy in Jarvis, you got your youth and speed in Blake, who's already had some really good hockey IQ. I mean, former Hobie Baker winner at North Dakota. Putting up 60 points. Hello. Yeah. And then you got Aho, and I think if you put those 3 together, I think you could have something to where you still have your veteran, your semi-veteran, who's still your young guy at 22, and then you got your young guy who's only a year younger than your semi-veteran young guy in Jarvis.
Crazy, right? Yeah.
It's still crazy that Jarvis is only 22 and Blake's 21, and somehow we get a veteran, semi-veteran, and a rook.
Yeah.
Crazy to think of where we're at. We've seen it once. I think we could have some juice, because they did play well together for that little bit that they did. I think you put a little bit more juice on it and let them roll. I think you could have a high-powered young group with Aho, who still does his thing. And I'm going to go with Brad on this one. You got to go back to Robinson, KK, and Nietzsche, because we saw how good that line was together. Like, they were, like I said, rolling like a freight train, and no one could stop. And go back to what you were saying, Ray, about speed, how you want speed with Roslovic. Robinson's got really good speed, and that's why that worked with Nietzsche, because those 2 together have been working phenomenal. And nothing against Roslovic, but I think Robinson, in the pit bull-like way he's been playing, works out where KK can still play his defensive game, but not having to overcompensate on the defense, to where he's completely take himself out of his offense. Where Robinson can play, he can use his offensive skills, but also his defensive skills. He's got that perfect combination where KK is somewhat getting there to that 200-foot perfectly. I think Robinson already does that in a sense, but add that juice of, all right, throw the nos on, and he's just going to go after you. And then you got Nietzsche, who's, right now, name a better player that's otherworldly than this guy right now on a supernova, boom shakalaka hot run that he's on right now, going back to NBA gyms for those who you know. If you know, boom, you know. Shakalaka. Yeah, if you know, you know. Aging myself here from as an early '90s kid who's play those games.
Yeah.
Third line, obviously, it's going to be the Jordans with Carrier. That they're beating up everyone. Like you need that battering ram. Like we're just going to absolutely smother you and just put butts on ice, not butts and seas, but butts on ice. Those are the three guys you want to do it with, because I don't know how you want to go up against that group when they're standing on the blue line. All right, find which brick wall you want to run through first, and you're going to get sat right back down in a proper way. And then if you do your math, you're looking at a Svechnikov, Drury, Roslovic fourth line. If you're like, why would you want to put Svech all the way down there? But you have that power forward ability of Svech to where, for whatever reason, him and Aho maybe are not somewhat connecting, but maybe if you put him in a spot where he is maybe that line driver, because you need that line driver, and he has that power forward ability to where he can still shoot the puck, but put the body on the guy. But you also have Jack Drury, who's not afraid to throw bodies as well and throw hands. We've seen that, but is also a good facilitator in the center spot. And you still got that speed in Roslovic that can match with what Svechnikov has, because Svechnikov has that speed, but he's got that big body mentality. But you have that power forward, the center who can be your playmaker, who can win you offensive possessions and find the right guy in the right spot. Then you got Roslovic, who's your shooter, who could compensate for Andrei Svechnikov's, hey, I'm going to do all the things and also pass you the puck. But you also got like Roslovic, who can still shoot the puck and stuff like that too. So you still have that. We still have what Brad had in that. Here's your puck retrieval playmaker, shooter, but you still have that to where you still got your center who's still winning all your possession battles. You got Svech, who's your power forward, you can do it all type guy. Then you got Roslovic, who's your straight up shooter / speed guy, who can still match with Svech's speed. I know it's a weird spot to put him so far down, but I think if you want to look at different line combinations, that could maybe work.
Rod put him down there. I mean, that ain't that far fetched.
Yeah, we've seen him on the floor. We've seen him down there. So I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I think that could maybe be a line where it's like, okay, you're not having all your younger guys, your small body guys together, like with Jarvis, Drury, I think Blake. Now you kind of like, okay, you guys, your big body with your speed and your hockey IQ, Harvard. I'm going to use my big brain here, center, than Jack Drury, who's been playing really well and is winning you face-off possessions anywhere on the ice.
Yeah, love it. And part of this is as much about making the opponent's coach deal with what you're giving them as it is about your own guys, right?
Right.
So if you put Svech on the fourth line, somebody's got to cover him, right? And you're normally going to cover your fourth line probably, or their fourth line maybe with your fourth line, right? You're not going to. So it's part of it's the mental matchup of, okay, they have three lines that they can roll, and they have a shutdown line to go against our line. And if they get last change, how do we defend that? How do we deal with the lines we're seeing?
And that's if you're rolling all those other three lines. So that's why I'm where with you at, Brad, where these lines will work if you're rolling those three lines consistently together, and then you have that tertiary line, mainly fluctuating up and down the minutes depending on the night and how the night's going and stuff like that, and how the game's going, to where maybe they might get more for a shutdown or they might go less, but you've got the other three lines still rolling.
Right. And then the defensive coach has to either roll his lines the same if he wants to keep the matchups, or if he does a more traditional, top line's 20 minutes, his fourth line's getting 14 minutes. Now the defensive coverage is going to change throughout the game, which in my opinion is tougher, right? It's easier if you kind of know who you expect to see on the ice every shift versus, if you're the opposition's coach and you're rolling your lines like you traditionally do and saying, I'm just not going to worry about it. On defense, those guys, you might be guarding Svechnikov one shift and Jarvis the next shift. And that's two very different play styles that you have to on the spot mentally adapt to. So you're kind of forcing other team's hand a little bit.
That's why I'm kind of thinking, if you kind of redistribute some of your different play styles, every line has a different play style. And Tim Gleason we trust, because look what he's done with the defense ever since he came with Rod. Shut down top 5 every season. So I'm definitely not worried about the defense and what Gleason does. I mean, that's why he's a pro. But yeah, like you said, Brad, like if you look at those, if you offset some of your guys with their skill sets onto different lines, who's stopping that? name a team in this league that's going to be able to go, okay, we're going to stop Jarvis and Aho on this line. Then we got to stop Nietzsche and these guys on this line. Then you got to stop Svechnikov and these guys on this line. And you got this third line that is basically taking a battering ram to, your doors. If you're watching Lord of the Rings, they're just battering ramming you into the earth the entire time. Like, who's stopping that? Yeah. I think the Hurricanes are in a really good spot of where you have a roster configuration thanks to Don Waddell and Eric Tulsky and everyone else to where it's, holy crap, what kind of complete team can you have where you have a shutdown line and then you got three lines who could absolutely just, if they're going, they're going.
Yeah. So, and what I think this last discussion has proved perfectly, it's kind of put a fine point on why Rod changes up the lines as much as he does. Because we all have three different unique ideas on what would be the best situation for this team playing in any game. They were all different. Like, with the exception of, the third line, C line, whatever, we leave that one alone, but you change everything else up. And there's all perfect reasons for success. We've all backed up our choices and they're all reasonable. So that's, it puts a fine point on why Rod is in a great situation where he has good problems to have with the amount of talent and how diverse it is. It's great. It's a plethora of talent. So that's the first thing. I think the other thing that we have to remember, there's a team on the other side. And as much as we say games are very winnable and stuff, we have to remember they're in the NHL. Mm-hmm. They've got talent over on those teams too. And let's face it, the Hurricanes are a team that opposition get up for. They get up for these games because they know how hard it's going to be to come away. No one comes into Raleigh or sees Raleigh on the schedule coming in to their rink and says, easy night. You know what I mean? That's just not the case. The reputation is legit and it's exactly the way it needs to be. The Hurricanes are hard to play against if we want these points, and they have all their own issues, every other team, right? Some of them are wanting to make the playoffs. Some of them are trying to fight through situations and they're trying to work their things out too. And Carolina rolling in is not something they enjoy at all, which is exactly the way. Yeah, that's why I like it. I like this team because we are hard to play against every night and we've earned that reputation responsibly. So that's the other thing. And again, I'll go back to it again. 17-9-1 is pretty darn good. And we are gnashing and wailing, gnashing teeth and wailing right now, but understand, and cursing the clouds and stuff, especially between Brad and I. We're old enough to be doing it.
We're in good shape. And Gramps here, there you go.
Well, but I was going to let that slide, but now you're owning it. So
I have to own it. Well, look at all the grades I got going on here, man. Like I have to own it.
He's got like the Brady Shea going on.
I know I think that's more of a style thing, right? And Brady Shea pulled it off. So I don't blame you.
It's Brady Shea, but look, you go back. I wish I had remotely the hair that he has, but
oh man,
I like the money. You keep the hair. I'll take the 7x7.
I'll take the 7x7 for sure. But you go back to what you said, Ray. You're 10-3 at home, and like going back to the Avalanche game, going back to the morning skate with Jared Bednar. I asked him, like, what is it going into that arena? You're not playing just the team, but you're also playing the fans of the atmosphere. And he goes, it's always a great place to play at. It's always tough. And the Hurricanes in general are tough, and that's what it is. When you have a coach like Jared Bednar who's coached the Avalanche more than anyone else and has done what he's done, he's recognizing that, Carolina's a tough team to play, one. home or road. And then if you are in Carolina, you know it's not going to be an easy night because you know that place is going to be loud. So it's just one of those things where it's like you said, teams will get up for the Hurricanes. It's like, okay, this is a measuring stick team of who's always in either A wins division or B goes on playoff runs. Like the Hurricanes have never not passed the first round since Rod Brentmore's taken over. Like let's keep that in mind of how good this team has been. Is the fact that this team is consistently at least making the second round. Everyone's like, oh, they can't go over the hump. Also remember too, the Avalanche, outside of them winning their cup, they've struggled for seasons to even get past the second round, and the Hurricanes haven't passed the second round twice in 6 years with Rod. So teams will hit that bump, or at least we're not Toronto in the first round, making it past it one time in 2 decades. It's just
celebrating.
It's one of those things where we are still waiting to get over the hump, but at least us getting over the hump is a lot closer than what other teams are at or what people think we're at. It's like, oh, the Hurricanes will never get over or they're going to take them longer. But it's like, it'll take longer, but at least the Hurricanes keep trying and you see them still getting up to the cap. Like we're still within $2 million of the cap. Like we're not 8, 9, 10 million off. Like we're consistently up there. And that's the thing too of like, oh, the Hurricanes won't pay. No, they pay. But they distribute the money in a proper way where you're not giving a Trocheck or a Shea type deal. You're getting here's your Shane Gostisbehere, Sean Walker, William Carrier deal to now where it's like, oh, Seth Jarvis, here's your very long contract. Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, Jacob Slavin with that amazing deal. They're finding ways to make a cap work in their favor to make a complete team rather than Colorado's heavy top 6 or the Maple Leafs heavy top 6.
Or the Preds. I mean, the Preds went out and got the top 3 free agents of the offseason. And it looks so bad for them right now. Like the fans are like already like can you buy? I mean, I've heard the buyout Brady Shea. And I'm like, not. I mean, you can, but like, you have 3 of those long-term contracts to deal with now. Like
you buy him out. That's four. That's almost ding near DiPietro level of this is going to be 14 years of deferred money that you're going to have to pay Brady Shea if you buy him out.
And Shea's not the problem.
No.
Shea's not the problem. He's a defenseman. Where are the goals coming from? I'll wait. They're not, all of these guys are being paid big bucks. Marchessault, Stamkos, like these guys, Forsberg, who is never the problem. Where are the goals coming from?
There's a reason nobody else was offering those guys 7-year deals.
No, because
that kind of money because everybody else went, oh no, they're probably at the peak and it can only get worse.
Marchessault is probably if I was the Preds, Marchessault would probably been the only guy I would have given a contract to like that and then worked everyone else out because giving 3 guys like you can say you can win the offseason all you want, but when it comes to how you're playing on the ice, that's what really matters. And right now, you can't give so many guys so many contracts and be like, okay, here we're just going to throw the money at the problem and get over the hump. It's like, but age, production, where you're coming from. And I would say, talking about Forsberg, I would love to have that mustache on the Hurricanes. He would be phenomenal on the Hurricanes. But
lots of love.
I don't really want to ask what that asking price is, but I love Philip Forsberg. I would love another guy I would love to have just for his leadership and just someone who would be really good on this team too would be Gabriel Landeskog. But that's just me. That's just me. But that's why everyone's like, oh, the Hurricanes are losing all these players and they're not getting all these guys. And even I love Tavo, struggling in Chicago, but he kept the same contract that he had in Carolina. And the Hurricanes are like, we love you, but we can't give you that deal. And that's why, they're cheap. They won't pay their guys. No, they'll pay their guys, but it's got to fit the right.
It's got to fit the mold.
It's got to fit the mold.
And going back to our opening discussion, that's where with particularly quote unquote small market teams that don't get national coverage, if you look at what the national media said in the offseason versus what your podcast and our podcast and like Tom Ray's pod, totally different. because the national media went, oh, they're not going to make the playoffs. And all of us were like, they'll be fine.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to win the Metro, but they're going to be fine.
It's a slight step back, but they're still going to be a playoff team because it's still Rod Brind'Amour.
Only one of those two groups actually watches the Hurricanes every night.
And this is what my dad says every year, and I love him for this, and he says it perfectly. The Hurricanes will always be disrespected every year just because of where they're at, because you get overlooked for everything. Because Rod's still not in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Guys are never going to win awards because that's just how the fact of where we're at right now is the fact that you are still. Yeah. They didn't even think we were going to sell out the Stadium Series. And like, are you kidding me? Like, have you seen us?
Right.
Tailgate
sold it out
games
twice in the fastest time ever. Like
you see it. Like ridiculous. You see how we tailgate games here. Like what do you mean we don't? Like, yeah,
in the football-themed hockey game? Are you kidding? There was no chance that wasn't going to be an instant sellout. No chance.
Right, exactly. And that's not me being biased as a Pack fan, but that's just the thing. It's like, well, like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
That's why I'm so tired that we're still hitting this narrative of, oh, it's Carolina.
Mm.
What are we doing here? How is this still a thing? 20, where are we at? 27 years later. How is this still a thing?
Yeah.
Are you not watching what Rod Brind'Amour and these guys do every year?
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
That's the problem.
Just not.
I love Anna do
but
it.
not close enough.
Yeah.
Not close enough.
Yeah.
They don't have the opportunity to deep dive the way we do. I mean, we love our team so much, and so we can point out the things that they can gloss over because they just have so many other teams to watch. We kind of
nice though if real quick, wouldn't it be nice though if the national, if the national names out there, the Severellis and LeBruns of the world went, I don't know. I don't get to see enough of the Hurricanes. I don't know the answer. Wouldn't that be refreshing? I mean, they can't do that all the time because it doesn't sell papers and doesn't sell meat.
It would harm their careers.
but wouldn't just once, if there's what do you think about the Hurricanes? They lost some guys, but they're smart. They'll be fine. I know it's not the sexy take, but
I'll shout her out. Anna Dua. She does a lot of coverage.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's mainly in Canada, but she because Pete Blackburn does. Oh, the Hurricanes are really exciting this year, and Anna Dua is like, no, they're always exciting under Rod Brind'Amour. Yeah, she gets it. While she may be not as a super huge national person like Friedman or LeBron or those guys, but for someone who maybe not be as big, but still has a following and has done stuff for the NHL and Sportsnet, she understands. This team is fun. Just watch them. Just watch them more than one game a season, or wait for them in the playoffs, or where they're playing the big boys of Canada. No, this team is actually fun. Just actually watch. Just watch. That's all you need to do. It's not that hard. Hey guys, non-traditional hockey markets have won cups recently and are pretty good hockey teams.
Almost like our players come from traditional hockey markets or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, isn't that nuts?
I mean, it's crazy, and also we have one of the best defensive defensemen in the league. But I'm not getting into that discussion. I'm not getting into that because I've said my piece.
It's another week.
We dipped our toes in the discussion with the Predators. To close out the show, Brad, I know you have a couple of league-wide questions where we can, discuss other teams. We can prove that we're watching what's going around the league as well, and we have opinions. You've got a couple of questions.
I do, and I think if I don't ask the question this week, one of these people at least may not be around. So the Blackhawks just got rid of their head coach Richardson, right? Sorensen's the interim coach. I don't think it'll fix anything, but they had to do something, right? And I mean, you just got Bedard, so the GM should be given some time to build around. Two people that I think are on the hot seat. One is the opponent we lost to last night, which I'm still can't believe that happened. Patrick Waugh came in, right, given another chance by Lou. Nothing's really changed for them. It's business as usual on the island. I don't think Waugh is the issue. I also am not fond of saying that GMs typically don't fire themselves. So is Waugh going to make it the year? Because Lou's not going to fire himself.
I will say this. Wah may not be the problem outright. They've had a lot of issues before he came in. His problem, this is going to sound terrible, he's got a big mouth. He goes onto the media and says this, and they're playing terrible, and he goes, "This is the team I've been given." Like he called Lou out straight away.
Mhm.
And further, he totally disrespected the guys that are working their asses off underneath him.
It was a very Don Levin
Does
move.
does that make a good locker room, guys, in any way? He's
I
taking
don't see how it
cracks
helps.
above him. He's taking cracks below him. How are they supposed to feel like their coach has faith in them? Like
It's very who he is for where his career has been, because you look at what happened in Montreal, goes to Colorado and then trade, then he coached the Avalanche and that was a whole thing, and he quits like so early into that. Patrick Waugh is such a he's a very blunt instrument, and we're talking like fighting Brandon Shanahan in a game blunt of how he is as
Yeah.
a person.
Oh yeah.
He has not taken the "I'm gonna let you know how I feel" out of his personality ever since he got lit up in that one Montreal Canadiens game. Like from that point on, it's just been, "I will let you know how I feel, and I really don't give two dings either way how you feel about it." Outside of him winning a Memorial Cup with the Remparts, he does not care. He's like, if I'm around NHLers, I will let you know how I feel. Around the kids, maybe a different story. But yeah, he will let you know and give you two fleur-de-lis of how he
Yeah.
feels about it. And that's basically how Patrick Waugh is as a person and how he is as a coach. He doesn't care. Like Lou, you can't form a team, and the guys with these contracts aren't that good. This roster is not perfectly set. But hey, we lost to them. But it's an imperfect roster that somehow found a way to do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
he is a very blunt Quebec instrument. To say the
I
least.
I feel like Waugh is not far from being removed. Just like it's like we've all agreed. Like I don't think it's Waugh's fault, but I also don't think that Waugh is.
He's not going to survive.
He's not the right personality if things don't turn around, because he's going to be blunt and he's going to say things, and I think he's going to short leash. The only person I can think of who might be on a shorter leash, and this, as much as it pains me to say this, I called this guy Ron Francis 3.0 the other day. Great player, not necessarily a good general manager. My favorite Hurricane of all time, Kevin Adams as GM in Buffalo.
Oof.
Their problems existed before Adams, but with the handling of the Jack Eichel medical debacle, just debacle, because he got the surgery he wanted and has been in Fuego since being in Vegas. Buffalo keep every single year. It's like they show potential, and you're like, oh, maybe this is their year, and then you give it a couple more weeks, and you're like, oh, never mind. Is Kevin Adams on the hot seat? Because I don't see, with the way their roster is built, them turning it around this year, and I need to look and see what kind of cap space and all they're going to have next year, but I don't feel like they're trending upwards. I feel like they're treading water at best. And as much as I loved Kevin Adams as a player, I'm not seeing positive strides being made in Buffalo. Is Adams maybe the first GM out for this season?
He would almost have to, because you look at how they have all these young guys in Bogosian, and still can't figure out what they're going to do with Devin Levi, because he's once again back with the Americans. Yeah, you get Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, who's good, but he's struggling with the team in front of him that you kind of wish I'd have a little bit more of a juice of an offense. The defense isn't that great. You had to buy out Jeff Skinner in that crazy contract, which I still don't know how that was even possible. Yeah, you got Tage Thompson. Yeah, you got who needs to stay healthy. Yeah, you got Alex Tuck. It's just a roster where it's like you're missing so many pieces. But yeah, you would think they would be good, but it's like guys can't stay healthy, or it just doesn't mesh most nights. And you can't fire Lindy Ruff because you just brought him in and thinking, oh yeah, if we bring Lindy Ruff, everything will work out. Playing musical chairs with coaches sometimes doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And bringing him back
too
for
many teams do it. That's what we said with Shane is the fact that Brenda
a
Moore
second run with Lindy too. This is his first time in Buffalo.
Yeah. Rod being one of the real veteran coaches of the league,
him
7 years in is
him and John Cooper. Him and Cooper.
Yeah.
Which, funny enough, they both came from Notre Dame Hounds, Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League hockey. So we got a couple sassy boys coming from Notre Dame.
There might be something there. As far as Adams goes, I don't think he's. I mean, you say hot when you say hot seat, like to me, the guys that are on the hot seat are like maybe a month away from losing their job. I think they probably Adams will need to, depending on how the team plays, will need to prove himself at the trade deadline. If Buffalo is able to work there instead of just treading water or dropping back, if they're able to find a way to push and try to get into those playoff spots, I think if he wants to keep his job, he's going to have to make a move to make the team better. What I wondered, and this is another league situation with another team that we all, I think it's safe to say, despise. So we're fine with what's going on there. Is Drury in New York?
Oh, yeah.
They played. I mean, they played hardball with Trouba. I mean, very high, and it's not the first time.
No,
exactly. And I'm trying to figure out. I mean, again, when I spoke about Roy, he may be blunt, and that might be who he is, but there are consequences. There are things that ripple out from that we're not in the locker rooms, but I look at the Islanders and say our coach thinks we're crap. Like, that's not going to feel good. Now you go to the Rangers and say no one's job is safe and they'll railroad you. I mean, there's a situation there where the players had a lot of power and the Rangers found a way to get around it and force the hands of other people. Now, either of you, if you're given the choice of your job or your family, there's no win. There is no win. I can say was actually a time where I actually felt a little bad for Trouba.
Oh yeah, he got railroaded.
He got railroaded. He's thinking about his family with his wife, all the rest of it. Wife, like becoming a doctor or whatever, and has it. I mean, that's why they went there. And I just wonder what that, some will say keeps players on their toes, right? If you don't want to be railroaded, you don't want to be treated like that, step up your game. Get out of it.
Here's the thing too. It's like, and I saw there is some people are like, okay, you have a no trade clause for a reason. Like you signed you gave them a no trade, no move clause for a reason. You have to sleep in your bed with that if you want to. The thing is, like, he said no to Detroit, and you somehow found a way to send him to Anaheim. Like, yeah, it could have been a lot closer to where you're in the Midwest and you get back to New York. Now you're way on the other side of the country now compared to New York. And the fact that this is the second guy they've had to do this to. because they did it to Barkley. They did Barkley Goodrow. Now he's in San Jose because they put him on waiver. You did this to your captain. If it's a different player, whatever, or it still stinks. But you did this to your captain, and he went on saying, "Yeah, he wasn't great. It stings. It was a threat." Like that's it. And the thing is, they've also put Chris Kreider on the block. They've put all these other guys that they're looking at to get rid of. Yeah, like you said, Ray, what does it say to the rest of your team? Okay, yeah, we will. We don't care if you're our captain or one of our 5 alternates, because what is that? That's almost like doing the co-captain thing. That's another time. What does that say to the rest of the teams? Like, we're just gonna ship off our captain and be like, "Thanks for your services. We don't need you," and we're gonna do in a way where you're just like, when we thought Vegas was ruthless to how like, hey, Marc-Andre Fleury, we're gonna trade you. We're gonna trade you. Here's your little handshake deal, and we're not even gonna keep the guy. We're just gonna send him back to Chicago. We just gave you up for nothing. We thought that was bad for Vegas. The Rangers did it to 2 players in less than what five
6
months. That's what I'm saying. And one of them is your captain. Now, it's good to see that the elbows are no longer in the Eastern Conference. Thank goodness morning Nietzsche's ducked, because oh boy, that would have been a whole situation.
Well,
he was just catching himself, sir. He was trying to catch himself against the boards with his elbow, sir.
Oh. Right.
That's what the New York media told me. Must be true. I always catch myself when I fall with my elbow, sir.
Oh, yeah, right. Sorry, yeah, but
when you're horizontal going in too, I mean that's
when the first second it goes up, not at the last second, but I will say this. So thoughts of him as a player is one thing, but him as a person, yes, he does a lot. I will give him credit for that. He is a great guy off the ice for all the stuff he does for cancer and what he does for charities, and good on him for one. Like, no, I want to stay here and be with my wife because she's in residency and all that. I will get on ice stuff. That's one thing with Jacob Schiff, but with off ice, I respect what he does in the community and the art scene. If everyone watched that Face Off documentary on Prime, which I thought was really great. In fact, he wanted to be there for his wife. That's great. It does think how that worked out, and yeah, you look at the Rangers like, do I want to go to the Rangers where in 4 or 5 years, am I going to be safe, or am I going to get, like you said, railroaded out of being here and now being somewhere else because, we're not doing well, but we're just going to move you. We don't care how it's going to happen. Either you go on waivers or we're trading you. We don't give a crap what you do. You figure it out, because we're going to get rid of you one way or the other. And like, so you did it to a captain, and one of your alternates in Kreider is also getting looked at. And like, okay, we need to get rid of these guys, but also, hey, we're going to give this guy the biggest goalie contract ever, like a day after you get rid of your captain like that. Like, that's a tough scene. And like I said, do you want to go to New York in general now with how the Islanders are and how the Rangers are? Like, that's a tough scene to be in.
Yeah, if you're a player, it's got to be. I know Aaron Ward mentioned this. He's like, I wouldn't go. If the Rangers come to you and say, hey, we're going to give you 5-7 years, whatever, no trade clause, you can't trust that. You go, no, I want more money and the no trade clause, because I know that your no trade clause doesn't mean anything.
No,
I can't trust you to. You signed a contract. I'm expecting you to uphold it, and they're not going to do that. So
the players, when they're negotiating with the Rangers from now on, they've sealed their own fate. Every player is not going to be looking for the no trade. They're going to be asking for the no movement. And if they get the no movement clause, they are on the team. They're and the upper echelon, like the GMs and stuff, they can't move them. They've got a guy, and every player going in there now, knowing that the Rangers are willing to ship you or put you in terrible situations. If you want to play there, they're going to start asking for no movement. And if they don't want to give no movement, Rangers going to have a hard time finding a lineup.
Yeah, give me an extra $2-3 million a year.
Oh,
and I'll take my chance.
And the thing too is, how long is Laviolette going to have a job with the Rangers too, with how they're playing? Because we all know how it goes. Everywhere he's been, Carolina, Washington, now New York. How long is it take before his voice starts to go quiet in the locker room and no one cares anymore? Like I've seen rumblings and heard rumblings of we're almost hitting that peak of a Laviolette being like, these guys are starting to tuning out the noise. Exactly. We're starting to see signs of that effect starting to click into it now too. So we're talking about another guy who might be seeing something. I'm not saying it's a definite thing, but I'm just putting it out there. We could be trickling in some effects of a Laviolette leaving the Rangers at some point with them tuning them out with how they've been this year. Yeah, they're fourth in the Metro, but
yeah, they're in trouble. They're in trouble.
Exactly.
More so than the Hurricanes, of which we are thankful. Do you know what the other thing you know what else we're thankful for? We're thankful for you joining us, Zach. Zach comes in here, gives us his knowledge. I don't know where you found the time to spare with us. We appreciate you here. And once again, now, I mean, we've been going for a while now, a little over almost 2 hours we've been going. It might take another 2 hours for you to share all of your information, where you're found, what you're doing, but we're gonna take that chance and let you do it. Where are you at? Go ahead and pimp yourself, Zach, because you're doing great work and you deserve to be listened to. So where can they do so?
Well, I do appreciate that, and well, I know you haven't answered the question yet, but D&D, luckily, it's one night a week for 3 hours. I just carve time into it because everyone's got to have a hobby. Everyone's got to have a hobby.
Exactly.
And also, there's also looking at the schedule, being like, okay, these guys aren't playing tonight. Cool, we'll make it work. I will say, I know you guys mentioned the Wolves coverage. Just how crazy everything's been for the last couple weeks. I've actually had to drop some coverages. Now it's just right now Hurricanes full time, just with everything at the Hockey Writers and podcasting. It's hard to watch Hurricanes and the Wolves at the same time, especially on the weekends. So I know when you guys were going to ask about like how do you find time to do all of it. I try, but there's also that mental aspect of like, because I deal with mental health. You guys see me posted on social media. Like mental health is a big thing for me. As someone who deals with like anxiety and depression and all that, I have to. There's points in my life where I have to like, okay, it's a lot. I need to scale and just focus on one thing, and that's luckily it's this amazing group that I've grown up with since day one. Because luckily I moved down the same year the Hurricanes moved from Hartford, so it's been 27 years of loving red, black, and white or Carolina Hurricanes. Thank goodness we got something. So there has been some scale backs. I haven't announced it on social media, but I'm going to let you guys know first, since you guys are absolutely amazing as always. So I'm giving you hey, this is the situation. I'm going on a scale back, and it's just nothing but Hurricanes coverage for the rest of the season. We'll go from there. So,
and where do they find you?
Yes, so it's One True Zach on X or Twitter, however you want to call it. I have to say X just because of my other podcast thing. We have to name it.
Or Twix. Or Twix. I have to get that one in there. I love Kat, and so she can say I needed to get that one in there. Sorry, continue. My apologies.
Sorry, bud. No, it's all right. It's mainly a bit where I'm just like, why? So you can find me there. I do have a link to in my bio where you can find my articles of the Hockey Writers, or just go to thehockeywriters.com, look up Zach Martin, or just go to we have a Hurricanes subsection. You can just go through some arrows. You'll find it there. You can click on my name where you find my author page, and you'll see all my articles. But the link tree does have the author page on there as well. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I try to post evenly as much as I can. I know Brad's probably seen it more where it's the same tweet or the same post on both sites. It's an easy copy and paste because it's just easier for me to transfer stuff back and forth. And I'm trying to stay more active on both. And it's good to be able to interact with Wade and Winter again. So that's always a fun thing. So it's the Zachary Martin on Blue Sky, One True Zach on X. You can check out Locked on Hurricanes at LO_Hurricanes. Search it on all podcast platforms on YouTube. I really appreciate it. We're rolling. We're doing our thing. Also, same thing for Surgecast. Podcast platforms on YouTube. Just look us up on there as well. Had a really cool pregame special episode with all of us since Bailey was in town. We were all together for the last show. So
Awesome.
definitely a lot of hurricane stuff. I know I'm in a lot of places, but honestly, I cannot be more blessed to do what I do while having a normal day job, be able to do hockey as like a side hustle too, where I hope this becomes an everyday thing because I love hockey and I love covering the Canes. And even if it is a full-time job, maybe if it's not covering the Canes, okay, it is what it is. But my hope is to make hockey my main gig, and that's because I just love the sport. I love the people in
Yeah.
it, and it's just I don't know. It's just something I've been wanting to do for the last couple of years. That's why I've been grinding so much, and big thanks to my wife for being so supportive of me just doing this on the daily with everything that's going on. So gotta give a big shout out to her for just being a rock of me being having to be like, yep, go do your hockey thing. If it works out,
Leave me
great.
alone.
Yeah,
Getting after it. Well, you're certainly
exactly.
doing it like, Locked On Hurricanes, I can tell you, informative, always great. And it's every day. So yeah, I mean, that's a tough thing for anyone to do, but you got the
Yeah.
accreditation as well. So, I mean, that's really all you need to say. You get accredited to a team. That means that you're legit, you're serious. I mean, you could be like Brad and I, right? Where we're
You
just a
guys are pretty
couple of
legit.
guys.
You guys are
Well,
pretty legit.
we approve and we appreciate that, but I mean, we're just a couple of guys with opinions. You're on the inside, and you can provide a knowledge that Brad and I can only speculate on. So that's why everyone needs to see you. Brad, I thought you were going to jump in there, and I cut you off again.
No,
Uh, Statler and
no,
Waldorf, right?
no. I was
They
the
have
only things
issues.
I have to say in the episode are our Chicago Wolves have climbed up. They are one game short of 500 on the season, so they are climbing out of the cellar some. They beat Rockford a couple of times, which is big for the Wolves. Wolves fans will love those. This week, Sharks, Ottawa, the only two games before we record next. It should be 4 points, Ray. I mean, I'm
Two
sorry, it should be 4
wins,
points.
2 straight wins, no overtime. I'm demanding that from the team. There's no way. There's no way that these two teams can. No.
I'll say this: 2 dubs.
There
Got to
you
get it
go.
There
done.
we go.
Got
Love
to get
it.
it done. Got to get it
Absolutely
done.
love it.
Sorry, it's the Sharks. They got smoked the other night. It's Ottawa. They're not playing great hockey. You've already beat them before. Do it again.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
Just make it happen.
That was the Martin shutout,
Guys-
too, right? Wasn't that 4-0?
Yeah,
It
4-0.
was.
Yeah, 4-0. You're back home. You're 10-3-0 at home. Get back to the home cooking. You're home for the next 2 weeks for the holidays for a 4-game homestand after a weird 1-day road trip. I don't know why you just didn't make that a 7-game homestand, but I digress. Just get back to basics, win these 2 games because you need to, because it doesn't get easier after that. Because if you guys saw the second to last week of the month, we have 2 back-to-backs.
Yep.
2 back-to-backs, and that's not even counting the game that's on that Friday before the first set of back-to-backs. You got 3 games in 4 days, and at the end of the month, you have the Devils on a home and home back-to-back. So it's not.
Yep.
It's not.
You start playing playoff teams again.
And you get
Yeah.
Columbus. And you get Columbus New Year's Eve after a couple of days off. But I'm just saying, we all know how weird those games get with Columbus. So you're talking what, 6 games at the end of the month where it's like you're going to need to start picking up points. Well, this is that week, and even the week after we get Columbus again. Before that one back in Nationwide, get your wins now before 2025 starts, because it does not get any easier. Because we're not
sure
that far off from 4 nations, guys.
I know.
It's going to
So
get real.
excited.
It's going to get really real at the back end of this month, at the back end
No
of the
question.
season. Get your points now.
Book those points. Book those points.
2 wins. I'm calling it 2 wins, and Marty Nietzsche will get to, was he at 42? He'll be at 40. He'll be at 46 by the end of the week.
That's where I would have put it. That's
There we go.
exactly where I would have put it. I love it.
Me and you, Ray. Me and you, Ray.
Another fantastic episode, Brad.
It's beauty.
There's just one
Well,
thing.
what,
left to
Brad? What do you
say.
think? What are you saying? 2 wins? What are you predicting?
Oh, two wins. Marty Natchez gets to 47. He gets a hat trick against the Sharks.
Ooh.
Oh, look at that.
Okay.
Hat trick on the
He
Sharks.
beats up on lesser competition. Sorry, Sharks, I like you, but
And it is what it is.
you're as close
building
to
up.
a non-league opponent as we're going to see all year, except for the Blackhawks.
Maybe the Preds too, if they keep things up that.
Nah, because that's the British A revenge game. Like Brady will go off on,
Oh,
Yeah.
We'll have 5 points and-
why you gotta put that? Why you gotta put that out there?
it already exists, man. The karma's already out there. It's not
There
mine.
you go.
The free space.
Just the messenger.
It's the free space on the bingo card.
Yeah. Don't shoot the messenger. But remember, in your hearts, there's just one thing that you need to do when the players are playing, and that is go Canes.
Go Canes!
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.